The first book I read of Devney Perry's was in 2019, and that was Steel King, and I never looked back. Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monica, and today I am going to do a deep dive into Devney Perry's bibliography. So if that's why you're here, welcome. All right, let's get down to the nitty gritty. If you hear papers rustling, it's because I took notes and because I cannot remember all this. She's written 45 books. 40 of those are full-length novels. 3 of them are set to come out in 2023. 5 novellas. 1 of them is also set to come out in 2023. So she has 4 more books coming out this calendar year. As of right now, in this moment in time, it is January 21st when I'm filming this. I got all this information off of Goodreads yesterday, January 20th, 2023. So this is kind of like a snapshot in time, so take it as it is. She first started publishing in 2017. Her first series is the Jamison Valley series. Her latest series are the Edens, which she is publishing under Devney Perry, and the Calamity Montana series, which she's publishing under WILLA NASH. All right, let's start with the standalones. So the first standalone I'm going to talk about is called Riffs and Refrains. It's the second book in the Hush Notes trilogy that she wrote with Serena Bowen and Rebecca Yarros. Serena Bowen wrote the first book, Devney Perry wrote the second book, and Rebecca Yarros wrote the third book. Riffs and Refrains has a star rating of 4.29. It has a total number of ratings. 4,032 people rated this book. And it is a second chance rock star romance. Quinn Montgomery comes back to her hometown in Montana. She is a drummer in a very, very popular band. She goes back for her grandmother's funerals, and Graham is a single dad living in their hometown, and it's their second chance at love, and it is one of the best books in the series. Then the second standalone, and then the second standalone is Ivy, and she wrote that under WILLA NASH. This was actually originally, I think she was writing it for like Vellum or something. So it's a chunky book, and it's more new adult than her regular small town romances. And it takes place at a college. It's supposed to be kind of like a Gossip Girl type thing, where there's 3 roommates. The new girl is going to be bullied, and each of the roommates is their love story within one book. And this book has 4.13 stars, and 3,278 people rated this book on Goodreads. Okay, so the last standalone book that I'm going to talk about is A Little Too Wild. It's the 3rd book in the Madigan Mountain series, and this was also written with Serena Bowen, who wrote the first book, Rebecca Yarros, who wrote the second book, and Devney Perry wrote the 3rd book, and it's about Crew Madigan, who is the youngest Madigan brother. He is a professional snowboarder. He goes back to their family's mountain in Colorado for his brother's wedding. There is a lot of hurt that happened around their mother's death that they have to deal with. And this is also sort of a second chance romance with the heroine, who is a ski instructor at the mountain, at the resort. And it's also brother's best friend, and her honestly her brother's a big douche. But this has a 4.15 rating, and 2,525 people rated this book. And there is one more standalone that's coming. It's coming April 6th. It's called Coach. The next series I'm going to talk about is the Calamity Montana series, which she wrote under Devney Perry. This book, as of right now, this series is not complete. There's another book coming out in 2023. So the first book in this is called The Bribe, and it's been rated 9,199 times, and the the average star rating on this book is 4.1. And it's about our heroine, Lucy Ross, who is a country music star, and she's running away from the her life because she has a stalker. She meets Duke Evans, who's the sheriff, and it is their romance. This does have a bit of suspense in it, and it's small town. And the next book in the series is a novella called The Booty, and honestly, this one makes me cackle. I love this book. It has, the average rating is 3.91 stars, with 1,022 people rating this book. It is about Lola Jennings, who goes to a bar with her friend. Her friend's about to get a divorce, and so she goes to Montana to support her. And they go to this bar on Valentine's Day, and the main event is this thing called the Wrangler Butt Contest, where men get up and they shake their butts in Wrangler jeans, and that just made me laugh so hard. I just thought that was the funniest thing. Anyway, so Aiden Archer, we actually meet him in The Bribe, and so this is his short little romance where he meets this girl. They have a one-night stand. The next day, they are opposing counsels. So it's really interesting, and it's a good book. Anyway, I do recommend checking out The Booty as well. The next book is The Bluff, and it has an average rating of 4.24 stars on Goodreads, and 8,527 people rated this book. And this is about Everly Christian, who is a friend of Lucy Ross from The Bribe. She meets Reese Huxley, who is an artist, but he also is an ex-con. He has problems with his ex-wife. His ex-wife never told him that he was a dad until he got out, and there's a lot of there's some abuse going on under his ex-wife's his ex-wife's house. So definitely trigger warnings for this one, but it's a marriage of convenience, because he needs to have her as a wife to be able to gain custody of his daughter, and she has a weakness for wayward men, and she just wanted to help him. And The Bluff is one of my favorites that she's done. That being said, this one was knocked down, but I'll tell you about that later. So the third book in the Calamity Montana series is called The Brazen, and it has a average rating of 4.16 stars, and 6,790 people rated this on Goodreads. And it is about Kerrigan Hale, who owns some property, but she's in over her head. Her investor, who is a friend of hers, an older man, ends up dying and leaves everything to his grandson, Pierce Sullivan. And Pierce is angry because his father was not a good man. This is stuff that Kerrigan didn't know about. This is, he's a billionaire, so this is a billionaire romance, and there's some forced proximity, and it's sort of hate to love because he thinks the worst of her, and she thinks the worst of him. And it's a really, really good book. Okay, and then book 4 in book 4 in the Calamity Montana series is called The Bully. This has an average star rating of 4.18 stars, with 5,343 people rating this book on Goodreads. This is about Nellie Rivera, who is the personal assistant of Pierce from The Brazen, and we've actually heard about Cal Stark when he dated Lucy Ross back in The Bribe. Anyway, they are arch nemesis. Well, basically he was bullying her back in high school, and but then they would meet up randomly and have sex with each other. So he used to be a former pro quarterback, and it was fine. I know there are people who really love this book, and that's great. Okay, and the last book in the series, and this is my personal favorite in this series, is The Brawl. And this has an average star rating of 4.27 stars, and it has 3,977 people rating this on Goodreads. And it's about Ronan Thatcher, who moves to Montana to get away from it all. He moves to Calamity, meets Lark Hale, who is related to Kerrigan, and Lark is a single mom, and he drops a $20 bill. He sees her from his window. He goes out, he drops a $20 bill just to get a chance to talk to her, and she turns him down for a date. And so he's like, and then they end up being neighbors, and then he is asked to sue Lark by one of her students, and there's no hate. He's such a cinnamon roll hero. He's fantastic, and it's really honestly a good book, and I do highly recommend the Brawl. And the last book in the Calamity Montana series is called The Brood, and this is not out yet. There is a star rating, but I'm not going to talk about that because simply it's not out yet. I don't know what this book is going to be. So when they have a star rating on non-published books, I generally do not pay attention to that. But The Brood is coming out August 10th, 2023. The first book in that is called The Naughty, the Nice, and the Nanny, and it has an average star rating of 3.9 stars with 10,545 ratings of people who rated it on Goodreads. And this one is about Maddox Holiday, who is who's visiting and about to move back to Montana from Los Angeles. He's a single dad. His daughter is kind of a terror apparently, because she's trying to get his attention. His ex-wife is just ghastly. Anyway, and he falls in love with a nanny who is 3 belles, 2 beaux, and 1 brother's best friends. Again, the tropes are in the title. And this one is Heath Holiday, and this has a average star rating of 3.86 stars with 7,610 people rating it on Goodreads. And this one is brother's best friend. She's always had a crush on him, and then they hook up at the holiday party, and it's co-workers, and it's good. It was a good time for what it was. And the last book in the Holiday Brothers series is called A Partridge in a Pregnancy. If you remember, this is Devney Perry's lowest rated book. This is Second Chance, One Night Stand, she comes back in town, One Night Stand, Accidental Pregnancy. I cannot stand this heroine. She does not listen to him. And the brother, what was his name? Oh my gosh, I can't even remember the brother's name. He wasn't listening to her. It was just a big bunch of miscommunication. So the star rating, again, was 3.71 stars for the average, and it was 6,663 people rated this on Goodreads. But the first book in the Jamison Valley series is The Coppersmith Farmhouse. This has an average rating of 3.8 stars, with 19,401 people, and people, I want to say person, but it's people, rating this on Goodreads. This is a very read book. So Gigi is a single mom. She moves to Montana from Washington State with her daughter. Jess does not like her. He's the sheriff. He does not like her automatically because the guy who owned the Coppersmith farmhouse willed it to Gigi. And he is really a jerk to her for a good part of the book. But the thing that I actually really liked about this book is the mystery and the suspense that went around it. And how he needed more groveling at the end. Even when I first read this book, I agreed. He needed to grovel more. But that did not take away from my enjoyment of of the mystery and the very ending with what happened in that basement. I thought that was really good. So it was something that I enjoyed. So the second book in the Jameson Valley series is called The Clover Chapel. And if you know anything about Devney Perry's newest work, Jasper VALE, we see that chapel in Jasper VALE. And this chapel is in Las Vegas, but the book takes place in Prescott, Montana, along with that was introduced to us in the Coppersmith farmhouse. Emmeline, who is the heroine, she moves from New York. She's a socialite. She's engaged to another man. However, she's also married to this guy named Nick. Nick Slater. She could not find him after they eloped on a whim in Las Vegas at the Clover Chapel. Anyway, so she decides to leave New York, becomes a kindergarten teacher, and that's where she meets back up with Nick. And this is their second chance romance. Nick Slater he's a pretty good hero. I think he needed to do a little more than what he did, but I actually really enjoyed it when I was reading it. It's one of those where I just really enjoyed the writing, and I enjoyed the reading experience while I was in the book. There is, again, another suspense. There's two sets of villains, and one of the sets of villains is something that is addressed in another series, but I won't give it away yet. So this has an average star rating of 4.1 stars on Goodreads, and 10,909 people rated this book on Goodreads. The next book in the Jameson Valley series is The Lucky Heart, and this has a star rating of 4.24 stars with 8,454 people rating this. This is Felicity's. Second chance romance with Silas. I mean, it is sort of second chance. They never really dated. She dated the guy she originally dated. He was killed, I think, back in book 1, if I remember correctly, after a meth lab was exploded. Anyway, she comes back for his funeral and she decides to stay. Silas is a friend, it's their love story. It is okay. Book 4 is The Outpost, and this book is my favorite in this series. The Outpost has a average star rating of 4.37 stars and has 8,878 people who rated this on Goodreads. And this is about Sabrina, who is a investigative reporter in Seattle. She ends up dating this guy she's undercover for an investigative piece. He's part of the mob. She brings him and his family down. She's now on the run and has to hide. She's Felicity's friend, and she ends up hiding out in the woods in Montana with the help of Bo, who is I think he was a ranger. And the Outpost is an actual building in the Glacier National Park, I think it took place in. Anyway, she has to hide there to survive because the Russian mob is coming after her, and it is the best book. I love Sabrina and Bo. They had great banter. This was definitely forced proximity, and I enjoyed every minute of it. So the fifth book in the Jameson Valley series is The Bitterroot Inn, and it has an average star rating of 4.33 stars with 7,853 people rating this book. And this is about Maisie. She's a single mom. She now owns the local inn, and her son's dad did something to her in book 1. He is dead, and I'm not going to give it away, but I actually really enjoyed this one. Hunter, who is the hero, has a secret that will definitely affect Maisie, and it's them getting over a lot of that stuff that happened in book 1 that I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to spoil it. So, okay, and the last book in the series is The Candle Palace. And this is a novella, and this is my second favorite in the book, in the series. This one is has an average rating of 4.424 stars with 5,422 people rating this. And it's Milo Phillips. He got injured in that meth lab explosion at the beginning of the series, and he is in a hospital, and I think it's in Washington State at a burn unit, and that's why it's called the Candle Palace. And it is a caretaking because the heroine is his nurse, and so it's definitely forbidden. And it was short, it was sweet, and it was beautiful, and I absolutely loved every minute of this novella. So the next Devney Perry series I would like to talk about is the Larco series, and this begins with Tattered, and it was published in 2018. So this is literally right after she had started the Jameson Valley. They overlapped in publication dates. So Tattered begins with Thea Landry, she's a single mom with a 5-year-old daughter named Charlie, and the hero is Logan Kendrick. We meet him in the Clover Chapel. He was Emmeline's fiance. When she broke it off with him, he was devastated. He ends up going back to Montana to Lark Cove, not Prescott, because of Kendrick Foundation business, their charitable foundation. He is very, very, very wealthy. Anyway, Thea, when she sees Logan for the first time, again, because they had a one-night stand back in New York, she tells him that he has a daughter who is 5-year-old Charlie. And Charlie, who is a tomboy, comes in with a frog. And I thought that was very funny. And this is sort of second chance. They did not know each other's names. So this isn't spiteful secret baby. This is, oops, I got pregnant, but I could not find you. And I'm glad I found you again type of thing. But there's definitely class difference in here. And it is very, very, very noticeable. He didn't really listen to Charlie and to Thea until he did. And there's a bit of a suspenseful subplot in it. Anyway, so the average rating for this one is a 4.05, and 22,346 people rated this book. Okay, so the next book in the Lark Cove series is called Timid and has an average star rating of 4.07 stars with 12,681 people rating this book. And it's about Willa, who has always had a crush on Jackson. Jackson and Thea from book 1 are friends. They grew up together in the system. There's a lot of hurt that Jackson has not dealt with. Willa's shy. She has a crush on him. He kisses her when he's high and drunk, doesn't remember her, and the story goes from there. And I honestly don't remember most of this book simply because I did not like the fact that Jackson did not remember kissing her. She's like, and she's always had a crush on him. So I felt really bad for her. Anyway, so, but again, Devney Perry can write a really good book. Okay, so the next book in the Lark Cove series is called Tragic, and this is actually my favorite book in this series, and it has a average star rating of 4.26 stars with 12,137 ratings. And this is Kane Reynolds' book. Kane is broken. He lives a life of solitude because his unborn daughter and the girl who he was not in a relationship with, they had a one-night stand or something like that, and she got pregnant, were in a car accident and were killed. His brother was driving the car, and his brother is in jail for drinking and driving. So he's really broken. And he meets Piper, who we meet in the first book, who is Landon's, I want to say personal assistant. Anyway, she just got out of a very toxic relationship. Her husband gaslighted her. And this is Surprise Baby because, and this was when Surprise Baby really works, because her ex-husband told her that she was the one who was infertile. I can't say more than that. So she never had birth control because she's like, I'm infertile, I can't have kids, I'm sad. Anyway, so she ends up getting pregnant, and this is their love story and how they both actually heal together, as well as heal personally and and come together as a couple. This one is one of my favorites from Devney Perry. I absolutely love Kane's story. It's just so good. The fourth book in this series is called Tinsel, and this has a average star rating of 4.25 stars with 8,271 people rating this on Goodreads. This is Sophia Kendrick, Logan's younger sister. Excuse me, I obviously need a drink. Okay, so anyway, so Sophia is his younger sister, and she's a socialite, and her hero is Dakota, who is Native American, and it's their love story. They meet in a bar, and yeah, it was pretty good. It was a rich girl meets poor boy type of a book, and it was good. Okay, and the final book in the Lark Cove series is a novella. It just came out in 2022. The audiobook just came out within this last week. And it has a star rating of 4.21 with 2,215 people rating this book. Aubrey, this is her story about finding love with people who do not want you for your money. Her hero is named Landon McClellan, and he is a cop, and who we meet in Tinsel. And it is actually a really, really decent short novella. The thing is with this book, you have the prologue in modern day Charlie's point of view. So Charlie, from when she was 5 years old and tattered, is now grown up. She just graduated from college. Her college boyfriend was cheating on her. She found out. The epilogue is how she's like, okay, I need to change. So she's going to move to New York. And then that was in the ebook, in the print book. But in the audiobook, there is a second bonus epilogue where Charlie comes back 3 years later and she meets a guy and his dog. And I have a feeling, I did not talk to Devney Perry about this, but I have a feeling this is going to be a new series, a new spin-off series from Lark Cove. Okay, so the next series is the Runaway series. And these are short road trip books. And it starts with, so there's 5 kids who were living in a junkyard in California because their family life was crap for different reasons. And those reasons are explored in these books. So they live in this junkyard, and London and Carson, they were boyfriend and girlfriend for a little bit when they were teenagers, and they lived in this old, I want to say it's like a Buick or a Cadillac. It was this old car that was a convertible. And now fast forward decades later, London has just gone out of a very toxic, very controlling relationship. She was living in Boston, and she is just freshly divorced, and she decides to drive that Cadillac, or was it an Oldsmobile? It was a cherry red convertible old car that she decides to drive from Boston back to California to give it to Carson. After she bought it from the junkyard, had it shipped to Boston, got it refurbished. Anyway, she ends up getting into an accident and meets Brooks Cohen, and I think in West Virginia. She wasn't paying attention, swerved off the road, flat tire, scraped it up a little bit, and there was someone in that town who kept breaking her car. And Brooks and London had these sweet lunches on this rock, and when they were in that boat, it was really, really sexy, and it's such a really good book. This one has an average star rating of 4.13 stars with 7,776 people rating this book. This is again, these are very short books. So at the end of this book, we meet Gemma. So Gemma takes the car from, it's a Cadillac, okay. I had to think about that for a minute because it's been a while since I've read these books. Okay, so Gemma takes the car. She decided to take the car from West Virginia to California. So we go on her trip in the second book, which is Wild Highway. And that has an average star rating of 4.33 stars with 5,503 people rating this book. And Gemma, this is more of a second chance romance. She stops in Montana to visit her friend Catherine, who was also at the junkyard. And she bumps into Easton Greer, whose family owns the ranch that Gemma and Catherine worked at when they left the junkyard with London. So Gemma at this point is very rich. She was very successful, sold her company, and now has a lot of money. And so this is Gemma and Easton's second chance romance. The ending scene where he rides up on that horse to stop her from leaving again is iconic. It is seared into my mind because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's pretty swoony. Anyway, at the end of this book, it's Catherine's turn to take the car. She decides to take it from Montana to California because Gemma stays with Easton. And that's when we get into book 3, which is Quarter Miles. And this is Catherine and Cash Greer. Catherine has always had a crush on Cash. And this book has a average star rating of 4.22 with 4,947 people rating this book. And she decides to stop in Oregon to see Aria, who lives on the Oregon coast. And Cash is he's a bit clueless that Catherine's always had a thing for him, and it's their romance. It's definitely because they are on a road trip, so this is definitely a road trip romance. Once he gets his head out of his hole, it really picks up after that. I did enjoy the writing. I enjoyed the characters in this book. At the end of the book, Aria decides to take the Cadillac from Oregon to California, but she decides to stop in Arizona, where her twin sister lives. And that's where we jump to Forsaken Trail, which is book 4. And book 4 is my favorite book in this series. Aria St. James, she loves to grow things, so she doesn't really like the desert, but she loves her sister. Her sister has a little boy. Aria and her sister's very, very rich boss who's kind of hot and cold with her. He takes her to a wedding because I guess her sister was supposed to go with him, but her sister got sick. The hero's name's Brody, and anyway, I'm sorry, I gotta move. I have been doing this for a better part of an hour. Okay, so anyway, Brody takes her to this wedding, and they have a one-night stand to find out that she's pregnant. She moves to Arizona. The Cadillac, has stayed in Arizona with her twin sister. Her name's Clara. And at the end of Forsaken Trail, when everything is wrapped up, Clara decides to take the Cadillac to Carson in California. This leads into Dotted Lines. Hey everybody. When I was editing this video, I forgot 2 things. 1, Runaway Road is the first book in the Runaway series, and second, the stats for Forsaken Trail, which the star rating for Forsaken Trail is 4.24 stars on Goodreads, and it has a total number of ratings of 5,105. Okay, back to the video. And Dotted Lines is the last book in the Runaway series, and Clara and Carson had a thing when they were really young. She was 18 after London and Gemma and Catherine had left to go to Montana. This book, Dotted Lines, has a star rating of 4.34 stars with 4,344 people rating it. This one is sort of second chance. They grew up. He stayed in California. They were all successful in their own way. These 5 kids have come out of this junkyard. Ending of Dotted Lines. It has this epilogue of these 5 friends coming back together in Montana, and how it ends is really sweet. Okay. The next series is the Mason Jar series, and this originally was just a duet. It's the first book is called The Birthday List, and this one has a average star rating of 4.28 stars with 12,024 people rating this book. This is about our heroine. Her husband was murdered at the beginning of the book. Cole Goodman is the cop who tells her that her husband was murdered at this liquor store robbery. And this 5 years later, She opens up this restaurant called the Mason Jar, where everything's made in mason jars. She also has this list of, from her husband, things he wanted to do before he turned specific ages. It's basically a bucket list. Anyway, so she takes a karate class. She wants to go skydiving. Learn to play the ukulele. Well, she meets Cole again back when she takes a karate class, and it's their romance, and it is very emotional and very sweet. I really do love Cole as a character, and this takes place in Bozeman, Montana, and you do meet the next couple, her brother and her best friend. And the next book is called Letters to Molly, and it has an average star rating of 4.34 stars with 9,898 ratings. The thing with this book, it's a marriage in trouble, but they're actually divorced. And you know that going into this book, and it's their story about what happened that destroyed their marriage and who did what. So it's years later, she starts getting these letters that were written to her by her now ex-husband from different parts of their lives, from when they first met all the way till when things imploded in their marriage. And it's them working through all their trauma and everything, and it's honestly one of the best journeys I had to a happily ever after. So Devney Perry has added another book. It's called The Dandelion Diaries, and it's a novella in the Mason Jar. It's now a series because it's no longer 2 books. And this comes out on July 11th. So the average rating on Goodreads for the Mason Jar series is 4.31. The most rated is The Birthday List with 16,368 with an average star rating of 4.28, and the least rated was Letters to Molly with 9,899. So the total amount of ratings that were given to this series, it was 26,267. Okay, so the next Devney Perry series I want to talk about is called Steel King, and this is the first book I read of Devney Perry. The average star rating is 4.1 with 13,771 people rating this on Goodreads. This sets up a murder mystery that is actually resolved in the next book. But this is about a former motorcycle club called this. I'm not going to tell you what the motorcycle club is called because it has a word in it that's I didn't even know was a slur until it all blew up. I'm just not going to say it. But Dash Slater, who's the hero, is this is definitely enemies to lovers. He is trying to prove that his dad did not kill Amina Daly. And Bryce, she is a journalist, is trying to prove that he did kill Amina Daly. And they decide to work together to prove the opposite, and the sparks fly, and it's definitely hot, and it's really, really interesting. It ends on a cliffhanger. You have to remember that this ends on a cliffhanger, and it goes into the next book with another couple. Because the second book in the series is called Riven Night, and has an average star rating of 4.2 stars with 9,904 people rating this book. And it follows Genevieve Daly, who we meet in the first book, who is Amina Daly's daughter, Isaiah Reynolds, who works at the Clifton Forge Garage with Dash Slater and the whole crew. His brother is Kane Reynolds from Tragic, from Lark Cove, and this is a marriage of convenience because something happens at the end of book 1, which I will not tell you, but in order to protect Isaiah and herself, they have to get married. And this is very, very slow, not as steamy, but it's worth every single moment. And we find out what happened to Amina Daly. We find out what happened to Dash's dad, Draven Slater. I will say this about Dash and Draven. We actually meet them in the Clover Chapel because Dash is Nick's younger brother and Draven is Nick's father, and Nick moved to Prescott to get away from the motorcycle club. And in the Clover Chapel, we meet the warriors who were the motorcycle club's enemies. And in the Clover Chapel, the motorcycle club that Dash and Draven were a part of, I mean, Draven was the president, was still in existence. By the time we get to Steel King, it's disbanded. It's, again, she's always intertwining these stories. So that's the end of that mystery, and then we move on to book 3. Okay, so book 3 in the Clifton Forge series is called Stone Princess. This is Presley Marks' book, and it's the average rating is 4.22 stars, with 7,566 people rating this on Goodreads. Presley is the Jilted Bride, which in the epilogue of Riven Night, that happens. So that's not a spoiler. She meets Sean Valance, who's a movie star, and he used to be a cop. So he has this, he's kind of like the hero. Anyway, he is now in Clifton Forge to film a movie about what happened in the first 2 books, for as much as they know what's happened. Anyway, so it's their romance, and it was fine. We meet Presley's twin sister Scarlett. There is some stuff that happens. I won't give anything away with Scarlett and Presley. I will say that they were abused when they were kids, and it caused a lot of problems working through. It's a thing. And Presley's ex-fiance is now a warrior who is an enemy of the Slater family and their ex-motorcycle club. So it's a whole thing. Anyway, so this one was sort of like a bridge book from the first 2 books to the last books. And book 4 is called Noble Prince, and this is Luke Rosen and Scarlett Marks' book. Luke is the sheriff in Clifton Forge, and Scarlett is a witness of stuff that happened with the warriors, and he is hiding her out. So this is forced proximity. He's hiding her out in his house, and it's their love story, and it's slow, but it's interesting. And I did enjoy this one. At the end of this book, something happens. Before I move on to book 5, Noble Prince has a average star rating of 4.29, with 6,028 people rating this on Goodreads. So book 5 is Fallen Jester, and this has an average rating of 4.22, with 6,536 people rating this on Goodreads. This is Leo's book. Leo, we meet in book 1. He was part of the biker gang. He didn't really want them to disband, but because he's very much a rebel. In the end, he stayed with his brothers, Dash and Emmett Presley, who works at the garage. So they're all this like big found family. This whole series is really a big found family series, which honestly one of the reasons why I love it so much. Leo has a one-night stand with Cassandra. She is home from school because she's a college student. She's in grad school for history. She is pregnant, and he does not take it well. He does not do well with responsibility. The thing is with Fallen Jester, it has the best character growth. I really enjoyed Leo going from this irresponsible, horrible person to being the person that Cassandra and their child needs. And there is something that overarches, kind of like a suspenseful plot, and that was fine, but for me, it was his character growth and her character growth and how they got together by the end. It was just really, really, really well done. And the last book is called Tin Queen. This is book 6, has an average star rating of 4.39, with 5,204 people rating it on Goodreads. And this is Nova's and Emmett Stone. His father was killed. His father used to be in the gang and the motorcycle club with him. Nova is not who she seems. This is very much, he does not know who she is. She knows who he is. She does not know who she is. So this is secret identity. They're fighting for different things, but they have the best chemistry, the best banter, and she is badass. I love what she does to that clubhouse and that one scene, and I cannot tell you because if I do, it's a spoiler. Again, character growth, both with Emmett and Nova. Okay, so the last series is called the Eden series, and this starts with a novella called Christmas in Quincy, and this has an average rating of 3.86 with 8,746 people rating it on Goodreads. And this is about Cleo Hillcrest. She leaves California just to get away, so she goes to Quincy, Montana, to the Eloise Inn, And we meet, and that's how we get to meet the Edens, because this is the Eden series. When she runs off, her bodyguard, Austin Miles, comes after her. There is feelings for each other before the book started. This is a novella, so it's very quick. It's definitely steamy for a novella, and it was a great introduction to the Eden series. The first book in the Eden series is called Indigo Ridge. This one has an average rating of 4.24 stars on Goodreads with 29,799 people rating it. On Goodreads, this is Winslow Covington. She's the new sheriff in town, and she's the heroine, and Griffin Eden, who now owns the ranch, runs the ranch for his family. So Indigo Ridge starts off with Winslow moving from Bozeman to Quincy, Montana. She knows Cole Goodman from the birthday list, and so we actually do get to see Cole coming in for a scene in Indigo Ridge. So Winslow and Griffin start off with a one-night stand, and then they keep having a one-night stand and a one-night stand and a one-night stand, and then it gets to the point where they're together. And there's this overarching suspense plot that kind of takes over from their romance. These women are being considered committing suicide, so trigger warning for that over on Indigo Ridge, which is on the Eden's property. But she figures out that there's something more sinister going on. Okay, so book 2 is where everything gets interesting, because book 2 is Juniper Hill. It has 4.22 star rating on Goodreads with 40,087 people rating it. And if you remember, most of the books that had the highest star rating was always the first one, was generally the first one, and the one with the lowest star rating was always the last one. But in this series, Juniper Hill has more ratings than Indigo Ridge. So this is about Memphis Ward, who moves to Quincy. She is the new housekeeper at the Eloise Inn. Knox Eden, he works at Knuckles, he owns Knuckles. He's a chef, and he's also her landlord because his sister Eloise strong arms him into letting her stay at their apartment over the garage or something like that. Anyway, she is a single mom. Her baby's 5 months old. Baby's very colicky, can't stop crying, and he comes in and is like, listen, let me help with this. Let me help so we both can get some sleep. And it's their romance, and it's very sweet, and it's really, really kind of steamy. I enjoyed it. There is this plot towards the end that has to do with the baby. That was very, very interesting. This was all around a very, very solid, really, really good book. And this one was actually my favorite book in the series until we got to book 3. Book 3 is Garnet Flats, and this one actually has a lower star rating. It's 3.9 with 16,482 people rating this book. This is Talia's Eden's book, and Foster Madden. Foster is an MMA fighter. You don't get to see a lot of fighting matches in this book. Talia Eden is a doctor. She's not taken seriously. Everybody sees her as another Eden. And Foster comes back, and this is a second chance romance. He is now divorcing her best friend after he broke up with her. There's a whole thing around that. That's why a lot of people don't like this book, and that he didn't have a lot of grovel. But I actually understood why Foster did what he did. I understood the mentality. He was trying to make it in his field. There was a lot of stuff that was going on with him, so I understood exactly why he did what he did. He chose his career and himself over the love of his life, and he regretted it. So it is definitely something to consider when you're picking this book up. I understand that, he should have groveled more. I honestly agree, and I enjoyed it a lot because I loved the complexity of the relationship, and there was a lot of things in this book. Okay, so the next book in the Eden series is called JASPER VALE, and this has a average star rating of 4.43 stars with 259 people rating this book. This book just literally came out, so again, I would take this particular rating with a grain of salt because not a lot of people have rated it yet, or are currently reading it. This is Eloise Eden's story. At the end of Garnet Flats, we find out that Eloise and Jasper get married in Vegas at the Clover Chapel. They decide to keep their marriage. Well, she decides to keep their marriage a secret. He has a past that's not healthy. He was neglected as a kid. It was really, really sad. He was gaslit, and he was manipulated in another relationship. Basically, he needed to heal on what happened to him. And I really enjoyed the reading experience with Jasper VALE. I really enjoyed how they grew again together to their marriage and into the series. It was very good. Okay, so the last book in the series is called Crimson River, and this one comes out on September 7th of this year, of 2023. The way I want to close out this deep dive into Devney Perry's bibliography is to reiterate that she does write in series, and they're generally standalone novels with an interconnected cast of characters, and those tend to bleed over into her other series that we have seen. And she uses the same places, but generally her characters are in Montana. And the thing is that she has some very beloved series. For example, there's one series that has the most ratings for people who have rated all these books in these series is the Eden series, and that series hasn't even concluded yet. And there's a total number of ratings. The total number of ratings, if you remember, for the Edens is 95,373, whereas the Mason Jar series, which has 2 books and 1 more book coming out, so that's also not completed, has the lowest amount of total ratings with 26,267. And that's also very beloved. But then you have the mixture. The thing is, and this is what I did, is the way I got these ratings off was I took the star ratings of each books and I averaged them out, and I figured out which series has the best star rating and which has the lowest, based upon the star ratings. And these star ratings are usually average of how many rankings there are. So what I did was, my chicken scratch, is I figured out that from the highest rated book series to the lowest rated book series. So the highest rated book series that Devney Perry has is the Mason Jar series, which has the least amount of ratings, number of ratings, and the average Goodread ratings for the Mason Jar is 4.31. Then it's the Runaway series, which has a average rating of 4.25. Then it would be the Clifton Forge series with an average rating of 4.2367. Then I put all the standalones together and averaged those ratings out, and it came out to 4.19. And then it's the Jameson Valley series, which with the average star rating for that series is 4.1833. And then it's the Calamity Montana series, which is also not done, with an average rating of 4.14. And then it's the Eden series, which has the most ratings. Okay, and that general rating, the average star for the amount of ratings that were given to each book was 4.13. And then it's the Lark Cove, which is 4.026, and the last one with the least star rating is the Holiday Brothers with 3.5233. So while everybody loves the Eden series, it doesn't have enough of the star ratings that, say, the Mason Jar has. So you have the Edens that has the most rated books, versus the Mason Jar, which has the least amount, and yet the Mason Jar has the highest star rating of 4.31, whereas the Edens is like third from the bottom with 4.13, and I thought that was extremely fascinating. The other thing I wanted to talk about before I close this deep dive out is that reading is subjective. So there are some books that everybody likes that I don't particularly enjoy, and there's some that I really love that nobody really cares about, and that's fine. And that's why reading is such a personal thing. The thing is I wanted to point out, I wanted to give you my top 5 books, but I wanted to show you how it's different and similar to 2 of my friends. So I asked a few of my friends, and 2 of my friends got back to me with their top 5 Devney Perry books. And the first one is Victoria from Victoria Reads Romance. And she said that her top 5 is Juniper Hill, The Outpost, The Brazen, Riffs and Refrains, and then The Brawl. Whereas Christi from Christi Reads a Lot, top 5 is Juniper Hill, Riffs and Refrains, The Birthday List, Fallen Jester, and The Brawl. My top 5 is The Brawl, Garnet Flats, The Birthday List, the Fallen Jester, and or Ten Queen, that tends to change from here to there, and The Outpost. So we have a lot in common that we like, but there are some glaring differences where I liked Garnet Flats more so than Juniper Hill. And so please tell me what book that you like of Devney Perry's, or what series, or were you surprised by these numbers? I mean, I was really surprised, honestly. I thought that there's going to be, I thought the Edens were going to be right up there with the star ratings. Anyway, and if you don't want to comment on that, please leave any emoji that you would like to leave, and please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that bell so you can get notification of any future contents. And thank you for sticking with me through this entire video. It was a long video, longest one I've ever filmed, but I mean, Devney Perry has 45 books and they're not all out yet. So anyway, thank you for watching and have a good night. Bye.